All right, everyone. It's already 2 minutes past our time, so we'll start it, kick it off here. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Very exciting uh, to have these panelists here that we have, and we'll kind of just talk about this ATS tracking system. Again, kind of start off with some house rules before we begin. Uh, just please make sure you're on mute unless you are speaking. Again, feel free. This is an open discussion, so if you have any questions, attendees, feel free to jump in, unmute, ask the question, and then once you're done, place it back on mute. You can also use the chat room. I'll monitor the chat room, so if you have any questions, type it in there. I'll ask the panelist, and we'll go ahead from there. And then I'll also go ahead and I'll start the introduction to our panel members. So today we have a diverse group from different industries and different fields. So again, it's exciting to talk about this ATS and getting some different views and different opinions that we have out here. So I'm gonna start off with, we have Carla Thompson. She's a workforce development manager for Turner Industries. We have Pri Newton here today, a recruiter. She's part of the hiring team at BP. We have Ann Binion, also from BP, and she's in the supply chain management field. We have Rich Goodrich here today. He's a talent development manager with Workforce Solutions. We have Jennifer Goodman, a recruiter, a little more specifically into the veteran and military community recruiter. So it's awesome to have her here. And then she's with Armark Uniform Services. We also have today Armando Perez. He's an HR business partner, vice president with Perry Homes. From NextOp, we have Patrick, who is also employment coordinator. We have Chris Cabanis, that is a program coordinator. Again, my name is John Zavala. I'm employment coordinator here with NextOp. I want to kind of give a shout out. They're not here today, but I want to thank them and being a part of this. They were able to help me out set this up. Kevin Rout and Craig Cassip, they're a NextOp alumnus. And then we have Dina Anderson and Tiffany Bradbury. They're also employment coordinators with NextOp. Again, they're out this week, but they also played a big part in putting this together. So I kind of want to thank them. All right, so again, that's with that here, kind of want to talk about the purpose of this webinar that I put together. This is the third series or episode that we've been able to put on, and the main purpose of this, again, I'm more, I guess, I'm the recent transition veteran that just got onto NextOp. So as I was going through my process, I attended a lot of webinars, a lot of job fairs, classes, and everything, and they were all great. But what helped me out the most was connecting with people and talking to people that are going through the same, I guess, issues as I was. You know, I was going through the struggle of submitting resumes, applications out, and not getting a call back, not hearing from them, or getting that thank you but no thank you email that we all seem to get. So again, just kind of getting frustrated. I attended a workshop with NextOp, and it was a small workshop. It was about 10 of us. It was a great class, but after we started asking questions. So again, some of the questions were kind of the same questions that I was going through or I had, but of course, me being a little more reserved in the corner, you know, I didn't want to ask those questions, but other people were asking them, and it kind of got me connected with them. And for that small moment of time, I felt like I wasn't the only one. Others had the frustrations. They were going through some issues. They were going through the fears of interviews, and again, just going through the motions of transitioning. So I left there with my head high. I was, you know, kind of motivated and feeling better about myself, feeling better about my transition. So when I got here with NextOp, again, same thing. We had some great workshops. We had some great tools to resources to give out to people. But I kind of wanted to put that away and kind of get a group together of just talking to veterans and a little more of a sit-down mentorship program, I guess, if you will. Just going through the motions of like a support group, if you will, just kind of helping them out for those people that have questions but may not want to ask or may not know how to ask. So this is the whole purpose of it. This last episode we did was about social media networking. So again, we just talked about great tips, some good practices of what we did for our transition. So I think it went really well. So today I decided to talk about the applicant tracking system. So I labeled it myth or legend, just because, again, just kind of doing my research, talking to a lot of people, I kind of had mixed emotions and mixed, I guess, perceptions of what exactly what an ATS is and what's it about. So a lot of people were telling me these words of, ATS, got to watch out for it. It's a whole boogeyman matrix sort of thing, and if you don't do it correctly, you're not gonna get that job. You're not gonna get an interview. You have to make sure your resume matches 80%, or you have to make sure it's courier new, or you have to make sure, whatever specific advice they had. I heard it all. I also heard the totally opposite of an ATS system doesn't really exist because different organizations do it differently. So again, it varies from each company. It may not be an exact program. It might be someone look at your resume, and it might be a personal review, a personal opinion of that person looking at the resume. So again, it's just kind of back and forth of exactly what is an ATS, what happens when I apply to a position, the behind the scenes of it. Why do I get that no thank you, you're not good enough email? And again, what happens when I do submit it, and what do people look at? What are recruiters, hiring managers, what do they actually look at? How is the whole process? Because I'm getting mixed things out there, and I want to give, I guess, the best information out there to veterans when they're transitioning or employment searching. We understand that there's only 6 panelists here that represent a small percentage of thousands of companies out there nationwide that do things differently. But our goal is to at least keep people at ease and kind of give them the best tips and practices of what happens and what to look for when you do apply for a position. If that kind of makes sense. So I'm not going to ask a question. I kind of want to just kick off. I'll go off with Jennifer Goodman first with my long spiel of an ATS tracking system. Again, I kind of want to kick it off with you of what do you think about it? What do you think about the whole perception of an ATS?
Sure. Thanks, John. And I appreciate the privilege to speak with you all today. I am the military recruiter for Aramark Uniform Services. So I'm going to be speaking specifically of Aramark Uniform Services and Aramark. And as John mentioned, things are done differently at different organizations. So applicant tracking, or ATS, applicant tracking system is what it stands for. It's an acronym. It's just that. It's a system for tracking applicants. And somewhere along the way, applicant tracking system, or ATS, and screening software have come to be identical. So they're used within the same context. And the first thing that I would say is they aren't necessarily. So you have a system intended to track applicants. Part of that is being in compliance with state and federal regulations around how applicants are handled, and the tracking system for that. So that's what that software is intended to do. Now, to the screening software piece, do some people utilize screening software? They absolutely do. I had a dear mentor who works for a major hospitality company, and he shared with me one time that he received 14,000 applications for one single job requisition. No one can humanly go through that many resumes. So there is a screening, and then there's a value that comes with the screening software. So then you get into, well, how do you get your name to the top of the stack? And this is where information can, differ widely. I don't know that I want to give that answer because there are other panelists here. You can go down a number of different ways, but I would say that, there's the discussion around how I can tailor keywords, but then you also have ways outside of it, which are essentially achieved through networking. So my words would be, don't necessarily fear the applicant tracking system. Understand that it is a way of tracking individuals. It may or may not use a software. I know that we specifically do not use a screening software. Anytime somebody submits an application for one of our positions, it goes directly into the hands of a human being to get reviewed. So, focus more on being a right fit for the position, network where you can, and control those things which are under your ability to control.
Okay, awesome. So I want to kind of same question here. Well, not question, but an ATS tracking system thank you for joining us. We're just doing an overview of what an actual behind the scenes ATS, what your thoughts about it. Kind of want to also kick it off here.
Sure. So as she mentioned, as recruiters, we tend to get a lot of resumes. So BP specifically doesn't necessarily use screening out tools. The applicant tracking system is solely, like she mentioned, for tracking. So we do get all of the applications into the tracking system. However, we do sometimes use what we call pre-screen questions, where we'll ask specific questions related to that position. So if any requirements specifically that you need to have, i.e. maybe you must have a bachelor's degree for this position, or you must be a certain age, those type of things, they'll typically be pre-screen questions that we'll ask, and that's solely to kind of narrow down people that fit the exact requirements. And typically you'll be asked, do you have a bachelor's degree? And then depending on how you answer that question will depend on whether you're screened in or you're screened out of the process. But if you answer all the questions and you meet all the requirements, your resume will land in the hand of a recruiter. And so I would just say, same thing, we typically use a lot of times key skill words or keywords to kind of help us as the recruiter kind of pinpoint applicants that are more of a fit for the role. So making sure that you have keywords in your resume that match kind of the job description is always a way to ensure that your resume is aligned with kind of what the recruiters are looking for. But most of the resumes that we have do land in the hands of the recruiter if you meet all of the requirements. Now, we may have, hundreds of resumes that we have to go through, hence why we sometimes will do keyword searches to minimize the amount of applicants that we do use. But that's typically kind of how our process works.
Okay, awesome. And then kind of elaborate, if you don't mind, so you guys can all chime in as well, but can you guys talk about more? Is there that 80% match rate? What do you guys do as far as that? Is that a true thing, or is that just a made up percentage, or is there a percentage out there?
John, I'd like to chime in. I looked at about 42 resumes this morning myself, and just want to, this is Rich, and I concur with what Jennifer and Pri said. I want to talk specifically about screening, because there's not really a magic number, it's 80%, but the closer you get to the keyword match is important. So I did a little test, and I'm gonna break the secret out here when it comes to the screening tools. We all call it an ATS, but all there are filters. So they filter out certain things. And the filter, I had a requisition for an engineer. I wasn't gonna look through 400 resumes this morning, because I have 19 other requisitions I have to look at. So what I do, I look at the keywords and I filter that 400 down to 150. Well, what happens to the other 250 people? They get an auto email that's prompted. So now I have to look at 150 resumes instead of 400 that align with the filters that I put in place for certain things. So I'm glad you put that scan up there, John, Job Scan CO. I've used that when it comes to that. So the closer you get, I would say 90, the more susceptible you are to getting through the filters. So I think that's the biggest takeaway when it comes to that. Now, I use Job Scan CO. I just did a test last week. I submitted a resume for a job that I know I was qualified for, actually highly qualified for. I didn't run it through Job Scan. Within 48 hours, I got the thanks but no thanks email. So what I did, I went back and I ran it through Job Scans. I changed training to talent, because talent was the big word. I used another email address, and 4 days later, I got an interview request. So I just did that to test the system, to see how it actually works. And I'll do that from time to time. So that's the secret there for fellow veterans like myself that were looking for jobs. And I said, hey, I know I can do that. JobScan CO works miracles, and I just had a little bit of extra time and it worked last week. So that's my take on it. All they are is filters. They're just filters to help narrow it down for a recruiter, because now I have 19 more requisitions with about 700 resumes I need to look at. So it just saves time.
Okay, awesome. Good info, Rich. And then, so Armando, I'll kind of ask the same thing as far as what do you guys use? Is there a software system you use when people apply, or?
Yeah, no, again, and thanks for the invite, John. Everyone, previously has mentioned awesome points. We do have an applicant tracking system at Perry Homes, and basically the way ours works is it does grade your resume. There are various ways to do that. What we use are pre-screener questions. For some of the jobs, it's usually 4 or 5 questions. They're all usually yes or no answers. And that's then going to give you the percentages that you're talking about. So if there's a lot of resumes in there, what the recruiter will do is, basically hit the ones that are 100% match, 90% match first, just to make a better use of their time. If there's a lot, just to Rich's point, what they're going to do is keyword searches. But I definitely would not be afraid of the applicant tracking system. And I highly recommend, whether a company's using one or not, it's always a very good practice, and highly recommend you're going to want to line up your resume every time that you're applying for a job to make sure that, it's matching the job description, because it's just natural when someone's viewing it, when a recruiter's looking at it, they've studied that job description. Those are the words that, the project management or the IT C#, they're looking for certain keywords. They're ingrained in their head. So the better your resume is aligned, once it's in front of that person, then it's just going to kind of scream out your talent a lot better.
Right. Good. So my other question here, I'm going to direct it to Ann. So Ann Binion, she's more inside of the, a management position. So I would imagine, Ann, you'll probably get recruiters coming to you with maybe applicants or potential candidates for you to look at for potential interviews. So I kind of want to get your opinion as far as management position wise of when you get a resume or when you get some information from a candidate, what do you look for? What's that process entail for you?
So John, I want to apologize. I don't work on the recruiting side, so I do not receive resumes. Unfortunately, that's not my position. I am a category lead in procurement, but Priya is on the call because she's in talent management, and so she knows the process, unfortunately, a lot better than I do. But I am here to help and give any insights I can around preparing a resume, how to handle rejection, and what can help you stand out. So I'd be better inclined to answer those questions and defer this to someone else.
Okay, great, no problem. So Carla, do you want to jump in and kind of talk about when you get a resume and what what the process is for?
Being an industrial contractor, our process is different than other companies. We do have what would be considered an ATS system for specific jobs. So you can go to www.jointurner.com and see what job openings there are and apply. And those jobs go directly to whoever is doing the hiring for them to review the resumes. The biggest problem I have with the system is I end up with 90% of the resumes are in no way a match to what I'm looking for. So it is a system that, works for us when we get the right resumes, but we do not reach out unless we are willing to take it a step further and do an interview. The other way we recruit is through our craft track system. So we have a craft line at each of our personnel offices. So if you're looking for a craft job, you call in. It's very important that you tell them what your skill set is and don't say what jobs do you have open. They'll ask specific questions and they put it into the system. So when the resume gets an open referral from one of our jobs, they look at the top of that list for who's available for work and then call based on that. So the key to that system is that you call 2 or 3 times a week and keep your name at the top of the list and be honest about what you're actually able to do. And don't, what I like to call, blow smoke. If you're not qualified to do a job, don't tell us you are qualified, because it makes the recruiter not want to call you in the future. They're very, very busy. But it is a good system. It works. It's available at all of our personnel offices. So based on what region you're looking to work in, you would call into that personnel office, and the operator that answers the phone would take your information. For veterans, the best way to get to us is to contact Mr. John Zabala, and he's incredible with NextOp, and be part of their organization. And he always sends us strong candidates, and we do our best to help them find a job with us or with another company.
Thank you very much. I'm going to jump in with a question here I got from Luke, from an attendee here. So it's a good question. I didn't mention this, but he asked about, is there a certain file to submit your resume with, or is there certain fonts, or is that such a thing? Like, what's you guys' opinion on fonts and file format?
With us, the big thing is PDF format or Word format. Don't send us links to click on, because we're not going to click on them, due to security issues and everything else. The font just needs to be readable. Times New Roman is a very clean font. 14 point gives a good view for somebody trying to read. And the thing is, just look at it before you send it and say, is this readable? Try not to send things in script, because it's a good clean font is just going to help the recruiter get through and see things.
Okay. Does anybody else, any other, so PDF, Word?
Yeah, I think PDF or Word typically is the best format, just because a lot of times, depending on the system, sometimes your resume can get kind of disconfigured sometimes when it comes through. So definitely, and then too, you want a PDF too. I typically say PDF so that no one can change or edit your resume once you submitted it. So PDF is usually the safest format to use. And then same thing, just a clear, not script, but Times New Roman, or some type of just simple font is usually, sufficient.
Okay, awesome. So I kind of want to get more in depth of, or elaborate more of, how to stand out. And I kind of want everyone to chime in as far as the panelists of how can I stand out as a candidate? What do you look at? What's the best chances of me getting that interview, getting that call back? So Jennifer, can I start with you and kind of, again, elaborate a little more?
Sure. So I'll say that I'm unique. So I'm the military recruiter across our line of business. I spend a lot of my time outward facing towards the community. I do more warm handovers to the recruiters that manage the positions on a regular basis and don't manage recs myself. So that said, when I'm having conversations with folks, because I'm very open to individuals reaching out to me, schedule some time on my calendar, what sets people apart is the ones who have done their homework and they come prepared. I can't tell you how many conversations I've been in where I've asked, well, tell me what you know about who we are and what we do. And I've had people flat out say, I don't know, I didn't look it up. I had a dentist appointment. We had a scheduled call. I don't call people out of nowhere. So when you have a scheduled time to speak with a company, know that role, know it inside and out. To what other people have mentioned, it's important from a keyword perspective as far as capturing the attention of the reader. But then you also have the second piece, which is being able to answer their questions and being able to demonstrate verbally that you're the right fit for the role. So you need to know that job announcement inside and out. And in doing that, it's also going to provide you with questions to potentially ask while you're on the call, because you should have some questions. And then knowing the organization as well, even if it's you only have 15 minutes to look at it, but coming prepared, not leaning on whomever you're speaking to for them to inform you of everything that you should have came at least partially prepared with.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then we'll go to Pri, if you don't mind jumping in.
Sure. So a couple of things that I look at is, first thing I look at is usually job titles, right? So does your job title, do you have this job title, or kind of one that's relative to what I'm looking for. Also, if you worked in our industry before, so do you have specific oil and gas industry, if that's what we're looking for? If you have transferable skills. So I would say definitely making sure that maybe if you're a veteran, how do your skills transfer to corporate or to the industry that you're looking to get into? You're going to have to be able to spell that out for the hiring manager versus assuming that somebody has a military background and understands the skills that you bring. So wanting to make sure that you make it as plain as possible. If you are, let's say, a tech sergeant, and in the military, that means you've managed people. Well, you may want to change your job title to somewhat that relates to a manager role versus say I was a tech sergeant. So just making sure that your skills read to what it would need to read to in corporate America, so that whoever receives your resume can understand how your skills are transferable to kind of what they're looking to do, what they're looking for as far as that job goes. But those are the two main things I typically look at first and foremost. And then I dig deeper into the resume to see, okay, does this person have transferable skills, or how do their skills relate to what I'm looking for?
Awesome, thank you. And Armando, please, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think those are all great points. So when your resume is kind of at the stage of resume review, I'll start off with something simple. Make sure and run the editing software through it, and then have someone look at it. It's definitely a turnoff when you find grammatical mistakes on resumes, and we get quite a few of them that have those. So make sure and have someone else review it, so they pick up on things that the software doesn't pick up on. Other than that, you definitely want to make it easy to read. I don't think they necessarily need to be one page, but you want it to be font that's easy to read. You want it bulleted out, kind of spaced out and to the point. You definitely want the keywords matching what job you're looking for. Another way to stand out at the resume review stage is make sure that you're networking. And if you know someone there, try to get referred by that person. Because when we open up a rec, there is a spot where we can see if it's a referred individual. And sometimes recruiters will go to those first at times. So just really knowing someone at the company will really help to stand you out, at the resume review stage, and will make it, a little bit more higher likely that you'll receive a call.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I have a question from the audience here. Hopefully this is from Hugh. Hopefully I said it correctly. But this is more of a, I guess, advice or question about resume format. Is there a difference between a theme-based, so I'm assuming maybe leaving some job experience off to more align to what you're applying to, versus a chronological order resume, adding every single job experience? Is there a difference? Is there, what you guys' opinion on that one?
I think if you have 40 years experience in something, you don't have to tell them that you worked at McDonald's at 16 years old. You can stick to the critical needs, but we do want to know what you've done for the last 5-7 years, because that makes a difference, especially in construction. If you did something at 16 versus what you've done for the last 10 years, could make a difference.
Okay.
I also think it depends on how you want to market yourself, right? So if you have maybe skills in different areas and you're looking to get into a different field, you may want to go with a functional resume that may highlight some of your leadership skills, some of your operational skills, those type of skills, versus doing a chronological resume where it kind of just talks through every position that you've held. So it really depends on how the person wants to market themselves, because a functional resume where you focus on the different skill sets that you have had over the 10, 20 years of your career may work differently for you than you doing a chronological resume where you're just kind of going back to every job that you had, but they may not be relevant to what you're applying for. So I would say research the different types of resumes and figure out which one you feel like is going to deliver what you're looking to deliver when it comes to your resume.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So next, I kind of want to switch gears. I kind of want to pick Anne's brain as far as, again, we have a proven leader, successful professional in her industry. I kind of want to get her get her advice that she wants to maybe um, bestow us as far as veterans out here, helping us out with our transition, with our resume submission, and kind of handling the rejection, so to speak, when we get the email back that we're not good enough, I guess. Kind of want to talk about that, or you mind speaking on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started out my career 15 years ago, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I really had no idea of how to write a resume and what would stand out. So my first resume was nothing more than a bunch of acronyms that I thought were super cool, but what no one else probably would have understood. So I actually met with the resume writer when I was at a job fair, and normally they charge you to do a resume rewrite, but because I was a veteran, he kind of he wanted to help me, and it really did, because we learned how to change those words from a military kind of jargon to something that actually is transferable in terms of leadership, teamwork, the mission at hand, etc. And I noticed that all of the skill sets that I've developed in the military are all indeed transferable, because you're constantly having to adapt to different environments. You're constantly having to adapt to different organization types and people and your boss and things like that. So I think all those skill sets, definitely helped me get to where I was. Not solely relying on that. I mean, obviously, my education and all those other things help play a part, but I think those solid skill sets really do. And I think that's so important to really communicate that through your resume. Also, not to give up. There were so many times I had doors shut on me, and I had this thought process thinking in my head, I'm a veteran. I was a Marine. Why shouldn't they hire me? And that's just the worst possible thought in the world to do, because you're not just that. You are so much more, and you're also competing against a lot of people who have, MBAs and other skills, things like that. So you just can't just rely solely on that. It is a huge accomplishment that you're very proud of, and that should be throughout your resume, and even when you interview. But not to rely solely on that, but just to rely on, any other jobs you might have picked up, even if it was something, when I was in college, I worked in the restaurant business, and I developed communication skills, anything that seems so kind of obsolete at the beginning, it can actually go forward a lot, especially when it's your first job. Rejection is something we all get. And I think the best way to think about it is to either solicit feedback if possible. A lot of times, if you apply for a job through a large company like BP, you may just get an automatic email that says, thank you for applying, but they'll either encourage you to apply again, or they'll retain your resume or something like that. However, if you do reach to the point where you do get either an interview or you meet with a hiring manager or a panel, it's always good to ask for feedback. There's nothing wrong with asking for feedback, because that's going to help you retune your resume to the way it should be, and maybe increase your chances of getting that job that you really want to. And I think the third thing I want to point out is networking is invaluable. I would not have gotten the jobs I did if I didn't just go out there and talk to people without getting overly aggressive, but just asking them, I'm interested in this. What would you recommend? And if that door shuts, well, kind of put your foot in between the wedge of that and say, wait a second. Is there another way I can go about this? Maybe not getting that job directly, but like, if not BP, maybe a subcontractor, maybe something that can kind of get you started and then help you get to that goal of working for that big company. So those are just some tips of mine.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Some good tips. So I have another audience question. So Ryan Mendiola, he asked, he want to know your opinion on, or you guys' opinion on, how do you guys, I guess, rack or stack, or is there a such thing of stacking them as far as listing applicants from top percent to down to the bottom? Like what you guys' thought process or procedures for that? Do you guys do that?
I feel like I'm doing all the talking, sorry. So we don't necessarily have a rack and stack. Typically we try to look for the top 10 to 12 candidates as far as the slate of candidates that we send over to the hiring manager. Most of them, I mean, it's going to be pretty competitive. So it's just a matter of, do you fall in the, maybe top 12 candidates, because of course we don't want to send over 20, 30 candidates to our hiring manager, because it's our job as the recruiter to kind of narrow down that slate for them. So I wouldn't say for us there's a rack and stack, and for most of the positions I've worked in recruiting, it's not a matter of a rack and stack. It's just a matter of who is the best fit for the position, and then sending the person over to the hiring manager for them to review and see who they want to move forward with.
Yeah, I would echo that same thing. There's not really rack and stack. The hiring manager drives a lot of it. You help them put together the requisition. So they'll come back and say, hey, I want to interview 6. Normally in the phone screen, you say, here are the top 6. Or he says, I want to interview 8. You send him or her the top 8. And they'll sift through it. You just set the times up for them. So there's not a 1 through 8 or 1 through 5. The hiring manager says, I want to interview 5. We send them 5 based on the phone screens, and they sort of figure that out from there. And as a recruiter, I'm on to the next requisition, because we normally have them stacked back to back, and we have to move through them pretty quickly, move them on to the hiring manager, and we get another set. So we don't rack stack them. He says, I want to interview 8. You send them 8. What you believe top 8 with, but there's not a rack and stack.
Armando, Jennifer, you kind of want to add to that, or is it any differences?
Yeah, I know you go for it, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, I think that they've hit on it. It's the qualifications of the role. Does the individual have the qualifications of the role? And then if the manager has said anything to me about specific qualifications that they're looking for that fall within the job description, that's what I'm looking for as well. So again, we're looking for somebody to fit a specific role and what's been outlined for it. So it's a matter of, do you hit those or do you not? And then moving from there to have that phone screening, what was the conversation? What was the overall sense? How prepared did you come for it? And making the determination from there whether or not to progress the individual to the hiring manager for review.
I just want to add something to that. Thanks, Jennifer, for adding that. I guess from the candidate or applicant side, which I've been on a few times, I want to get interviewed, because in my mind, if I get in front of somebody, I'm going to sell. I'm going to be the top 1 or 2. That's just the way I perceive things. So I want to get 1 through the screening process, 2 through the phone screen, and I want to get in front of the hiring manager, which is the goal there. So we want to get to that process. So it depends on the hiring manager, and I think as a candidate, my goal is to get in front of somebody. If I'm getting in front of somebody not getting a job, then my interview skills need some work. So I think if you're a job seeker, you have to put yourself through the process. I'm not getting any phone calls. I'm getting a bunch of rejection interviews. It's my resume. I'm getting phone calls. I'm getting to the phone screen, but I'm not getting an interview. It's what I say on the phone. And if I am getting the interview, it's what I'm actually saying in the interview. So I think that process kind of proves itself over and over and over again. And it gives you, as a candidate or job seeker, the chance to say, okay, how can I tweak it? And when I get in front of a panel like this, I may have to narrow it down. Okay, how do I improve my interview skills, or how to improve my resume, or how to improve my phone screen? So you're more definitive when you ask people for advice, if that makes sense as a job seeker.
Yes, that's good insight. Armando, you had a comment?
Yeah, I would agree with that point. There's multiple levels of the process of getting a job. As far as standing out at the resume part, I think the one thing that's going to help you the most is networking. Whether you were referred or whether you can just get in front of that person somehow to make your resume stand out, that's going to get you more likely to maybe get reviewed sooner, because sometimes it's just a numbers game. If you get a lot of people that are qualified, but you applied a week later or something along those lines, the recruiter may have already found the 5 or 8 candidates that the hiring manager wants to look at. But I think that's an excellent point to see what part of the process are you stumbling at, and kind of help you better identify, the area that you need to improve on. If it's at the resume review stage, then one thing you're going to want to look back at is, am I applying to jobs that I'm actually qualified for? If a job says degree required, and you're never getting a call if you don't have a degree, that could be a chance, a reason why. But definitely networking is very, very important.
That's awesome. So I do have a question from Luke from the audience. So he's asking about the cover letters. How does that factor into the process? Does it matter? Does it play a role? What's your thoughts about cover letters when someone's applying? So Jennifer, we'll start with you.
I'm actually going to defer to the others on this, just because in my role, I don't manage cover letters a whole lot.
Okay.
So I'll chime in. Cover letters. I'm going to be honest, as a recruiter, I don't read a lot of cover letters because I just don't have the time. But I don't think that negates from the fact that they are still very important, because a lot of times the hiring managers will definitely read the cover letters. Also, it's a good place for you to put some skills or maybe things that you didn't include in your resume that you feel are relevant that you want to get across to the hiring manager. So I definitely say definitely use a cover letter, and use it to be able to just enhance and talk yourself up even more to the hiring manager, because and I also have hiring managers, like for communications, a lot of times they'll absolutely read a cover letter because they want to see how do you write, how do you communicate. That's another form for them to be able to see that, and some of them don't even want to see the candidate if they didn't include a cover letter. So I say absolutely always include a cover letter. And use it to your advantage, where you're able to add things that can help sell yourself through the process.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, anyone else has, Carla, do you have any opinions on cover letters or the factor of it?
It isn't a factor with us. If you send it, great. But all we want you to do is write your resume. And this is so important. If you're applying for a job in human resources, make sure your resume reflects that you have that skill set. It doesn't have to be a direct correlation, but it needs to be there. And the biggest problem we have is we have people who apply for supervisor roles that have no experience in construction. I can't make you a mechanical supervisor if you've never done mechanical work. Telling me in a cover letter, it's great, but we're going to really look at your resume, look at your experience, and that's what we're going to base who we call back to come to work.
Carl, a very, very good point. The resume speaks volumes. Cover letters, I don't read them, to be honest with you, but if you are going to use them, no more than 2 paragraphs, straight to the point, and make sure they're chock full of keywords, because that'll bolster you once again to actually get through a filter that we're talking about. So if you're going to use them, I don't read them. I just go straight to the resume, to be brutally honest. I don't have the time to do it, but if you put keywords in there, it'll help out. But the resume, like Carlos said, speaks volumes.
Okay, awesome. So the next thing is, again, we talk about best practices and good tips and everything. And so coming from our job at NextOp, we review a lot of resumes from veterans, and we help them a lot to, again, refine it, rebuild it. So we kind of critique a lot of them. So I kind of want to get you guys' opinions on not the good positive parts, but the negatives of what not to do on a resume. We kind of stress, we see people put pictures of themselves on the resumes. I mean, you say it, we've seen it. So just kind of, please, from your guys' perspective, I think will come a lot more from you. If you kind of, each of you kind of chime off some things of what not to do on a resume that's kind of kill your chances of getting that call for interview.
I can start on this. In your summary, I don't want to know that you're good to your mother. Okay. Your resume is to show, and you're laughing. Your resume is to show a skill set. It needs to be brief. It needs to be to the point, because I'm going to look at that first, and I'm going to say, okay, this matches with what I'm looking for. So your summary needs to be built to what you're trying to get hired for. The people I've talked to in industry say, don't put the picture. There's pros and cons to that. We hire people based on their skill set, period. So like we talked about before, what you put in your experience and what you put as your, if you're transitioning from the military to the real world. As much as I want to say I support the military, I don't know what every MOS means. And so you have to spell it out for me. I wish that I did, but I don't. So if you want me to look at your resume, make sure you tell me what you did in the military. Put it into civilian terms for me that I understand.
Yes, awesome. Jennifer, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I would agree that the professional summary needs to speak to the position. I would like to see a civilian formatted resume, whether it be a reverse chronological or functional, but just not a federal resume, and a resume that is succinct and concise. So I've seen those resumes that are 4 and 5 pages long. I'm just going to be honest, no one is reading 4 or 5 pages. We may skim through it quickly, but nobody's really reading that. So 1 to 2 pages of a resume, keeping it in there and targeting it to the role specifically. We're looking for specific skills to fill a specific role, and we want to see the resumes that reflect that. So tailoring resumes and not just reusing the same resume for each and every position is also going to be incredibly important.
Very awesome. Armando?
Yeah, I would agree with those things. As I mentioned before, grammatical errors, we see those a lot. You wouldn't think, but you see unprofessional emails, just that, if you're applying for a job, make sure that you're using an email address that's professional in nature. Make sure that, per everyone's point before, the way you're describing your job is easy for someone that either isn't in your industry or wasn't in the military. That it's to the point, professional, that it's been edited. And then what I would say is, some tips beyond that is prepare yourself for if you do get a call. So what I would do is I recommend keeping a little list, nothing in depth, of just the different jobs you've applied for. So that way, when you get a call from Perry Homes, you actually know what I'm talking about and that it was for the construction manager position. And you don't respond with, well, what, Perry Homes? Oh, I don't know that I applied there. Answer your phone professionally, have a professional voicemail on your phone, so that way, if you're out there looking for a job, everything has to be job related, so answer the phone professionally, professional voicemail, the way you represent, the email that you use, all those things. If they're bad, it will have a negative reflection on you as a candidate.
Awesome. Pri?
So I think all of those are all really good, valid points. I would just say, if you want to stand out, one, make sure that you are, showing how you add value, right? So a lot of times I see resumes and they're written like a job description. They're not written like, hey, this is what I've done. This is the action that I've, done. This is the impact that I've had on the company. Because a lot of times we want to know, what have you done for your previous, employers that you can come and do for BP. So making sure that you use a lot of numbers, make sure that you're able to say, this is how I've saved the company money, or this is a process that I've been able to, improve. Those type of things are things that are going to allow you to stand out amongst your peers as far as making you more marketable. So making sure your resume adds value, and then also, I think, as Carla pointed out, making sure that you don't use a lot of military jargon, because not everyone has a military background. So being able to translate your skills so that the hiring manager can understand that. Grammar is extremely important. Making sure that when you're applying for a position, that you actually put that position in your summary. Or, as a lot of times I'll see people use the same resume for different positions, but it'll be for an HR position and this may be for a IT. So making sure that you're reviewing your resume before you submit them. And there was one other point. Oh, also job descriptions. So I think he mentioned that making sure you write down the various positions that you have, that you've applied to, so that you know when they call you back, but also printing out the job description, because a lot of times once the posting comes down, you may not have access to that job description. And so the job description is going to help you prepare for the interview. So a lot of times we forget to print, you know, to have that so that you can do your homework when you do get the interview.
Awesome, thank you. And then, so Rich, anything to add as far as the don'ts?
Yes, I got a list of don'ts, but I'll just keep it very brief. Don't put your picture on your resume. If I want to see a picture of you, I'll go to LinkedIn. Like Armando said, I can find you on LinkedIn if you're professional. Two, as a 30-year Marine Corps veteran, I still don't know, and I was guilty of this myself, I still don't know what a senior enlisted advisor to the commanding officer means or translates to. Please don't put that on your resume. I did that initially, and I was asked, hey, how does that generate revenue in my company? And at that point, I had nothing to say. So I stopped putting it on my resume. So I want to pass it on to our senior enlisted transitioning military members out there. Don't put that there. So just make it very simple. You bring value, you bring leadership in certain areas. Make sure you translate that onto your resume, and just get some help. There are a lot of veteran organizations out there, like John's organization, that helped me transition in NextOp to find roles and jobs and help me with my resume. So those are some of the don'ts.
Awesome, thank you. And then Anne, anything to add as far as your advice on the don'ts when you're applying our resume?
Yeah, so I agree with what everyone said around military jargon. Not everyone was in the military. They don't understand what you're talking about. Grammar, very important. Keep it consistent, keep it concise, keep it succinct. And I think the only thing I want to add is, you know, there's probably a lot of people coming out of the military that did not have jobs like you would, and maybe perhaps supply or logistics or something along those lines, where from like a dollar amount perspective, you could save, you know, your military group some cost savings or something along those lines. But if you let a team, you know, be very distinct around what that team was, what they did. I mean, if you let a team of 10 people or even larger, I think data points are so important in a resume because it's kind of tying in your skill set, obviously, but this is what I delivered. So I managed a team of 50 people. We went out, we did the X, Y, and Z. You know, we met on a regular basis. We did annual reviews, anything like that. It's military-wise, just keeping the jargon out. I think data points are so important. I think that needs to be included always.
Okay, great.
John, can I just make one more quick point? I wanted to point out that now I just lost my train of thought. Oh, this one to say job alerts. So a lot of times, I know for BP, we don't keep our positions open very long. So we may keep it open for 2 weeks. So I always tell people, allow, you know, the job alerts to do a lot of the work for you. So you want to set up job alerts. You maybe with your top 5 or 10 companies that you're interested in finding positions with. And then when we post a position, the position will automatically be emailed to you so that you'll know when the positions become available, so that you don't have to constantly go back and look to see if there's a position that fits you at this company. That saves you so much time, and it allows you to get automatic alerts for various companies that you're interested in. So I definitely say set up job alerts, create profiles with the various companies that you're really interested in applying to, and let them work for you.
Okay, awesome. Good point. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I transitioned to Turner Industries 6 years ago. I was in a nuclear position, and I didn't want to stay in nuclear, so I put out that I was looking. Important pieces: be willing to take a step back to take a step forward sometimes, especially with a great company like BP. If I saw a manager position at BP that I wanted to apply for, and they offered me a coordinator position, I would take it, because you know good companies are going to offer things in the future. And don't put yourself into a box. If somebody calls you and has an interest with you, think long and hard before you say no, even if it's not exactly what you want, because I'm a firm believer that doors open once you're in. And sometimes, like I said, that step back is going to help you go forward. LinkedIn is a great resource as a job seeker. A lot of companies use LinkedIn when they're looking for candidates. And my company uses Career Builder a lot to look for candidates. And of course, it's annoying because sometimes you get things that you're not looking for. But 3 different people, when they were hiring for Turner, found my resume. One found it on LinkedIn, one found it on Career Builder, and one found it on the Turner network where I had applied. And so 3 different people gave my resume to the hiring manager. So just be be a little broad when you're looking, and use the tools that are out there that recruiters use.
Yes, good point. Thank you, Carla. So my last question. So again, me receiving a lot of thank you, but no thank you emails. On the bottom, it says that we're going to keep your resume on file for anything that opens up that matches, that aligns more to your experience. So my question is that true? What do you guys do with resumes that doesn't meet that certain job position? Do you guys keep it? Do you guys look to fill a role that matches more, to another position that's available? Again, what do you guys do with that resume or application?
I'll start with this one. I would say, there's been a lot of focus on getting the no and it being the individual candidates, something on them that resulted in the no. But it's important to remember that there are other things that can go on behind the scenes with positions. For example, if we post a job, but we've already identified somebody internally to promote into that position, we still have to post the job in order to be in compliance. So a position may get posted that really no external candidate ever had an opportunity to get. And the second piece being, if we post a job because there's an open opportunity, there's no identified internal candidate, but then somebody internally does end up seeing the position, they're going to be given priority, as arguably it should be. So, keeping that in mind, definitely examine what is within your control. To Rich's point, where in that stage can you see that you're getting hung up, and how can you rework whatever that piece is, but then also being aware that there's outside forces. Regarding the applicants, the applicant tracking system, it also holds applicants. So for us, I can speak to what AUS does. We keep all of those applications, they remain in our system indefinitely. And we focus not only on recruiting, but also on sourcing. So many of our recruiters will go back into the system, do a search for previous candidates, and they'll bring them forward, or they'll reach out to them first. And if that individual is still interested, they will bring them forward to the hiring manager to say, hey, this was a previous applicant. This position is opened back up. Would this be somebody that you want to review? So they definitely are there, but I know for us, it does take that recruiter doing an extra step as far as going back in to identify those folks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Anything different? Is there the same across the board, or?
Yeah, John, they're kept, go ahead, Pri, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
They're kept in a database, and sometimes a job seeker will get an email 6 months, 8 months later that may say jobs that match your profile are available, and you can reapply, you can tweak your resume. So that email prompt is a result of a certain percentage within their database. If you hit an 80 or 60% and a job role comes open, it'll prompt an email out to you that says, hey, these jobs fit your profile at Turner Industries. And it prompts you to probably apply, but you can click on the link and look at what jobs are available. So yes, we do keep the database with all the jobs in there, with the job seekers information.
So I wanted to just piggyback on that. So we do have our applicant tracking system where we do, keep track of, we have a database that tracks all of our internal and external candidates, but we also have a kind of a client management system where we have a pipeline of candidates that we may reach out to that may or may not be in search of an opportunity, or we may build the pipeline just for future opportunities. And so we kind of have that, that we may send out to applicants that we found on LinkedIn, or maybe someone that we feel like would be a good fit for a role, but there's nothing open at the moment. And that allows us to keep candidates warm. So we send them various updates, newsletters, things that are going on in BP so that they can stay connected with us. And should there be an opportunity for them, we already have their contact information. So we kind of have both systems that we use parallel.
Okay, awesome. All right. All right, so that's all the questions that I have. I'll kind of open it up here in a couple minutes for the audience. Do you guys have anything for the panelists today? Again, feel free to chat room or unmute, ask the question. Here's your time.
Yeah, this is Larry Williams, Louisiana Department of Veterans Affairs. I had posted a question in the chat, but up here at the department, one of my responsibilities is veteran employment assistance and also referrals. And my question is, we have a lot of veterans that transition back to Louisiana, but not all of them transition back to a Baton Rouge or New Orleans. You have some veterans going to some real rural areas. What would your all advice be as far as networking goes, or some tips that would best prepare them to be able to legitimately work for one of the bigger companies like your Aramark, like your BP, like your Turner Industries, outside of just, submitting resume after resume, especially when you get up in like a Monroe, Louisiana, somewhere where you may not have a lot of resources?
Hey, John, can I answer that?
Yes, Patrick, go ahead.
Hey, Larry, I'm the Gulf Coast Regional Coordinator. Those areas I cover. As far as I get a lot of veterans in those areas that need help, not just in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. What we find is best is trying to find the companies to partner with, but also, as I said before, is networking, creating that network, especially with the veteran community, and trying to, that's what really, especially here in Louisiana, the network is really what's important. I'll be happy to set up a call with you some other time. I mean, you can go over and see kind of how you're more impactful in those areas for you.
Yeah, Patrick, that sounds good, brother. I really appreciate it. I think a matter of fact, I think you're Patrick at nextopvets.org, right?
That's me.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, I'll just shoot you an email and we can kind of go from there.
Roger that.
Okay, thank you, brother.
All right, awesome. Any other questions from the audience? I'm sorry, Larry, for missing that question.
Hey, so this is Luke. I have one more question. I know I've been asking a few. I apologize.
No problem.
Just real quick, when you guys talked about submitting resumes through the ATS through like a company, so like I'm firing off a couple resumes through like Lockheed Martin, and you talked about how they're kept in a profile, but each position I'm curtailing that resume or tailoring it to that, the job description. Does it matter how many resumes I have in that system? And if they're all going to be somewhat different, does that flag it as a problem because I'm all over the place, or is that not an issue?
This is Rich. Luke, not at all. You just have different skill sets, and if the roles are a match or close to a match, you may get an email about different roles. So it just widens your net. So, for example, if Lockheed Martin has a project manager role, they'll probably call you for that. If they have a role in the mechanical department, they may call you for that also, because all they're going off a percentage of a match that's actually in there. The key to that is, Luke, when you do get those prompts says, hey, Lockheed Martin has roles that may fit your profile, to go in and actually apply for that and just don't ignore that email. That's the system telling you that they've identified something close to what your profile is. Whether you have 1, 2, 5, 7 resumes out there, one of them will hit. And you'll be able to figure it out once you click on the link and what they're looking for.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're kind of going to wrap it up here. My takeaway in this panel, this workshop, was to me to not look into the ATS too much. So as long as you as an applicant or someone applying for a position, as long as you're doing what you're doing, taking the advice, refining your resume that best fits the job description, I think you're taking the time out, researching Again, what Armando said, writing down a list of what you apply to, preparing yourself. Like Rich was saying about, hey, tweak your resume. If it's not getting hits on it, it's maybe your resume has to be fixed. Or you're getting a phone call, but you're not getting that second interview. Maybe it's your personable skills or interview skills has to be tweaked. So again, kind of the whole purpose of this was kind of not being afraid of the ATS system and just looking at the job description itself, applying to it, making those connections, and not just shotgunning your resume out to different places, and hopefully one thing will stick out of the 50 applications. So again, I really thank you for your time. It's going to really touch people out there. It's going to help veterans and people transitioning out there from, again, months, from years to come as they listen to this video. From me to you, I thank you very much for your time again. Any other comments, anything any last words of advice from anybody?
Use JobScan. It works. It'll go from 44% to 90% real quick.
Awesome.
And the link is in the chat. I think John put it out there also.
Yes.
And I'm on LinkedIn, so if anybody wants to connect with me, feel free.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, as a military recruiter, I would add that some companies, especially larger ones, do have individuals like myself. So don't be afraid of doing a search to see whether or not you can find us. You can do a Boolean search on LinkedIn to find somebody that works for a specific company and has military or veterans in their title. Or you can do a filtered search and do the same thing, but definitely reach out to those folks as well, see if they're there, and see whether or not they can help support your journey as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So again, this is just starting off. I'm hoping to do this once a month with different topics. So again, please, I really respect you guys. If you guys have any critiques or any advice for me as far as topics or anything we could do better to help the veterans out, feel free. You have my email address. Please contact me. If you guys need anything, let me know. Again, thank you very much for your time.